And welcome back, everyone. Welcome in to another episode of the Dynasty Force podcast. Back with you again here. I'm your host, Robert at Fantasy Force FB on Twitter, and I'm here with my great buddy, my great pal, Billy Brisbane. Bill, how are you today? I love the room scenery that you got going on over there. I love the hat.
Yeah, man, different little bit of a setup in North Jersey at my girlfriend's house. Hence the picture in the background. But I got the hat on. Big Memorial golf tournament this week, so definitely got a hit on that. But UFC 251 Fight Island, Abu Dhabi, fighting on the beach. I'm absolutely excited. My boy Raheem Mostert took the fight, 6 days notice, cutting 20 pounds, showing up, flying halfway across the country, and it's about to be a great weekend. So I'm glad to talk about some fantasy football tonight because we have some news to get into for the quick question, man.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's multiple things that we're gonna cover tonight. As Billy mentioned, we have some news to cover really quick in our quick question. But besides that, we're gonna be talking about running back committees today. Just different situations around the league where, the team it's ambiguous, we'll say. It's not something where you're gonna look at and like, let's just say Carolina Panthers, oh, it's Christian McCaffrey and no one else. Like obvious situations like that where most teams in the league don't rely on one running back all the time. So it's really important to break down these committees and try and find the value where you can. And then we're going to end it tonight by talking about a recent dynasty startup that Billy and I are both involved in. Just kind of talk about how we've gone through that to this point. So, without any further ado, I mean, why not just get right into it? A piece of news that Billy and I we didn't talk about. What was this, a week ago or so when this happened? I know it happened before our last show and something we didn't really cover, but it's Cam Newton landing with the New England Patriots. Again, we didn't really cover it the first time, but it has major implications. It's a 1-year deal. He's making very little guaranteed, but he can make up to 7.5 based on incentives. What are your thoughts? Is he the week 1 starter? Is he 16 games, and how has it changed the offense?
For Dynasty, I already felt like I had a pretty aggressive rank with Cam Newton because I knew he was going to sign somewhere. So he kind of moved up a little bit, but it didn't really move the needle too much for me in Dynasty. But in redraft, he shot up the rankings. He's my QB 16 in redraft. He has a rushing ability that's attractive in the late round QB range. The question I have for you would you rather have Big Ben or Cam Newton for a redraft?
By the way, another piece of news that I also wanted to share with the listeners today. For those of you who've carried over from the Fantasy Forecast, I've been working on these rankings for the 2020 season for a while, and here they are. They're finally complete. And as you mentioned, Cam Newton, I got him also sitting there at 16, as you can see, and I have Big Ben down there at 24. Right underneath Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins. I have Cam Newton ahead of Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, Gardner Minshew, right behind Daniel Jones, and maybe a hot take there with Tyrod Taylor. But yeah, I do like the landing spot for Cam Newton. I mean, he's not going to have to be all that he was when he was in Carolina because the defense is elite there in New England. And he's going to be able to benefit with his Josh Allen style of play. You see how Josh Allen is a great quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, not necessarily, like you look at all the advanced stats and he's a terrible quarterback, but they win games because Josh Allen does what Josh Allen has to do. And Cam Newton's going to go out there and he's going to do what he has to do to help the New England Patriots win game. Running game. Actually, no.
We're talking about the pass catchers first.
Yeah, we might as well because you know, we'll head into the backfield in a bit here. The pass catchers, who do you think really gets? I mean, Julian Edelman's the clear, one that they build around. I actually like N'Keal Harry a lot for this move.
I'm glad you like N'Keal Harry. For Julian Edelman, ultimately he goes down even more. We never seen Cam Newton feature the slot receiver before. I don't see a scenario where he becomes a target monster, safe PPR play ever again. I'd much rather take a shot on Marvin Jones, Darius Slayton, Deontay Johnson in both Dynasty and redraft. But for N'Keal Harry, if you like Brandon Ayuk, I think you should like N'Keal Harry as well. In 2018, as teammates at Arizona State, Ayuk caught 33 passes for 474 yards and 3 touchdowns. N'Keal Harry had 73 catches for 1,999 yards and 9 touchdowns. The college production and athletic profile helps me get rid of his bad rookie season. The Patriots only have 3 rookie receivers ever in history that have been targeted 50 times in a season. With Cam Newton, I think that should further develop him, as that is the best fit out of all the quarterbacks between Tom Brady and Jared Sittenham, because Cam Newton likes to target the
The
big,
big
tall
guys, yeah.
receivers. That's kind of the narrative that always goes around with Cam Newton and his receivers because of his inaccuracy. How about you? How do you feel about the wide receiver situation?
So I'm looking it up just for size comparison. Julian Edelman is 5'10", and he's probably very close to the 200 range, if that. N'Keal Harry is 6'4", and I think around the 220 range. So just based off narrative, we're more on the N'Keal Harry side automatically from that. I think from what you saw from N'Keal Harry last season, I mean, it can't get any worse, can it? Like, he's a first round pick for a reason. He was the 101 in a lot of leagues last year in Dynasty for a reason. And
That
it's
was a
not
big
just,
mistake,
it was a
but
big mistake, I'll admit. But regardless, he's still a great talent, and he still has the potential of a great wide receiver. Cam Newton made Kelvin Benjamin look great for 2 years before he tore his ACL. Devin Funchess had his moments with Cam Newton and Greg Olsen, another big guy, even though it's a tight end technically. But yeah, Greg Olsen had his moments too. N'Keal Harry, I think, is the biggest benefiter from Cam Newton signing with the Patriots for his potential development, along with the opportunities that he will be granted with that. By the way, I did check my rankings. I have Julian Edelman down at wide receiver 30, so he's not completely off my board, but he's someone that I'm not excited to grab. I don't see a ton of upside. He may even fall a bit more than that before the season gets going.
Yeah, I have Julian Edelman ranked wide receiver number 39, and I think I'd rather have Tyler Boyd over Julian Edelman, so he might fall down to 40.
Definitely understand. I even before Cam signed, there was just a huge question of how the offense was going to be productive, and now that Cam is there, we're kind of all just assuming that he's healthy and that the offense is just gonna pick up where it left off. But I mean, no preseason at all likely for the NFL at this point. It's kind of hard to just throw a new quarterback into this situation when he's barely been working with guys and say, here, succeed.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about one other piece of information that actually just broke a few hours ago. It's Raheem Mostert, running back for the San Francisco 49ers, requesting a trade. Now, as a Raheem Mostert fan, I have him ranked 11th in my running back rankings for this upcoming season. Obviously, I'm worried about this news, and with the amount of shares I have of him in Dynasty, but I'm not that worried. because I don't think the 49ers will trade him, because he can request this, right? But he has very little leverage. Like, he's barely getting any money this season, so it doesn't really make any sense for them to trade him. If he holds out, he's just going to lose a year towards his free agency. And he's already, I think, 28 years old. So at that point, you're a running back who's getting older and hitting free agency with a ton of question marks around you. To me, there's no reason that if Raheem Mostert is still on the roster, that he won't play. And we've seen this last season when Robbie Gould, I mean, completely different position, but Robbie Gould also requested a trade from the 49ers because he wanted to go back to Chicago. And the 49ers basically said, nah, we don't have a reason to trade you. You're our best option at kicker. We're not going to make that trade. And didn't happen. Robbie Gould played, and he seemed fine with it. They went to the Super Bowl, so you can't complain too much. I mean, I completely respect Raheem Mostert and what he's trying to do here, but the 49ers don't have to honor his trade request. So personally, if I see him get traded, obviously he's going to take a tumble no matter where he goes. But I think it's very unlikely that he gets traded.
I think there's a little bit more smoke in between this. I was reading a little bit of what he was asking for. The reason why he requested his trade is because he wanted his salary to increase to $3 million, because the initial contract that they had negotiated was when he was just a special teamers for the roster.
Right.
And the only reason why he's trying to see this increase is because Tevin Coleman's getting paid $4.5 million.
Right.
And I really think it makes sense for both sides of parties to reach an agreement on a slight pay bump before the season starts. And I really could see a scenario where he can really get traded. I think the biggest value from this news is Jeff Wilson and Tevin Coleman, obviously, but I really think McKinnon. Jeff Wilson, obviously. It's the reason why I said Jeff Wilson, because you can get him for a very bare minimum cheap price. Yeah. And who's to say by the end of the season he might be the lead rusher in the 49ers backfield. But let's get into these ambiguous backfields.
Yeah, definitely. Our quick questions based around the Patriots and the 49ers, and a little quick, preview here. There are two teams that we're going to talk about here with running back committees for the 2020 season. So we don't want to harp too much on those backfields just yet, because we want to get into that. But real quick, just want to give a shout out to our podcast page on YouTube and Twitter, at Dynasty Force Pod on Twitter, Dynasty Force Podcast on YouTube. I've been dealing with some issues as far as getting the podcast onto major platforms like Apple and Spotify. But I'm in the process of trying to rectify that. But in the meantime, you can find the full episodes on Twitter and YouTube. So be sure to check those out. And then if you have any questions, anything that you want to bring to us, as far as concerns, we're very open-minded. Catch us at dynastyforcepod@gmail.com. Any questions, any recommendations, anything you want to bring up to us, just send them in, and we'll be very open to listening. All right, so the first backfield, I alluded to it earlier. We're going to talk about the Patriots backfield. Let's just rattle off some names here, because there's a few. Obviously, Sony Michel leads the way. James White's going to have a role. Damian Harris is a third or fourth round rookie from last season. Then you have Rex Burkhead, who recently restructured his contract, so he will likely be on the team this season. You have Brandon Bolden as well, who's mostly a special teamer, but I think he had a 3-touchdown game last season. So, as we've learned from the Patriots in the past, 20 years of Bill Belichick being the head coach, you can't rule out anyone in this backfield. So Let's try to find some value here, Billy. I'll let you start off here and take the reins.
Sony Michel, I hope people believe the narrative that running backs do better with running quarterbacks. At first, you think on paper this would favor Sony Michel and not James White with the Cam Newton signing to the Patriots. The only reason why you would think that is because you would think Michel would benefit from a better offense because of more trips to the red zone. Michel's workload last year, he benefited from just getting a lot of touches just in general. He was one of the most used running backs in the league, and it's hard to really improve in that category, in my opinion. And I think the narrative that the public is going to hear all season is Cam Newton's inability to throw checkdowns. Newton's times with McCaffrey proved his propensity for targeting pass catchers. James White is no Christian McCaffrey, but I think he can do his best PPR imitation of it. Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara are the only running backs since 2017 that have more RB targets than James White. And then when we talk about Damian Harris is always a sneaky name because of the Sony Michel injury history. Harris has a disappointing rookie campaign. The third rounder from Alabama struggled with injuries and lack of playing time last year, but deservedly so in the Patriots backfield with Rex Burkhead
All the
being
names,
and all the names. He's nothing more than a dynasty flyer to me because what is his path to getting on the field? He's someone that's going to suffer from the shortened training camp and no preseason. It's a situation to monitor because the first hurdle for him to even reach the radar, me buying him, is can he be Rex Burkhead out for the job? Because I really think Rex Burkhead is going to be a guy that's going to still get snaps and carries. How about you? How do you feel about this backfield?
So real quick, I wanted to check with fantasyfootballdiehards.com, their best ball ADP right now. This is about, best ball is most of the seasonal drafts that are happening right now, so it's the best thing to relate to for ADP at the moment. The running backs in this backfield, James White is currently the 36th running back off the board, going around the 11th round. He's the first, and then Sony Michel right after. He's the 38th running back off the board. We go down the list a little further. Damian Harris is 67th running back off the board in the 19th round. So, most of these running backs that you're going to get are cheap. So, like, if I'm going to sit here and say, oh, I'll just take the best value, they're all values at this point. So, that's not really an argument that you can make. If I think Sony Michel is due to get the majority of the work, but in my opinion, we've seen the floor. Like Sony Michel can get a ton of work on the ground and still, be terrible. He was a bad running back last year, just plain and simple. They lost their center throughout for the whole season due to blood clots, I believe. They had injuries across the offensive line. Their left tackle got hurt throughout the season. They were starting Marshall Newhouse for a while, and that was probably one of the darkest times in Patriots history. James Devlin, their fullback, got hurt during the season, had some neck issues. He actually retired this offseason. So there are some worries with this running game. The thing is, Cam Newton helps that a lot. As bad as Sony Michel was last season, I think if we believe that Sony Michel on a team that's built to run the ball, right, because they have a great defense, on a team that's built to run the ball and has a quarterback with the ability to run, and there's a history that having a rushing quarterback helps the running back, then I think Sony Michel is a value right now. The thing for me is just that, is he
value in Dynasty or redraft?
Redraft. redraft. No, you're good. I mean, he could be a value in Dynasty, but what's his long-term outlook, especially if he does poor this year? So, I mean, he is someone who could definitely, in the 11th round in redraft, he's definitely worth that shot. You're getting a starting running back on a great football team. James White, like you said, he's not Christian McCaffrey, but he can be a great receiving back, and still be a great receiving back for this team. And then Damian Harris, he's someone that I want to be on the field. Like I didn't visibly react when Rex Burkhead restructured his deal, but on the inside, I'm like crying over here because I just want Rex Burkhead to get cut or something, so that we can actually see Damian Harris, I'm sorry, on the field, because it's hard for me to believe that he deserves any work, and he's a former third round pick. It's hard for me to believe that they just wanted to waste a third round pick or have him in case Sony got hurt or something. So I'd love to see Damian Harris get on the field. I'm willing to buy him for his price in Dynasty, but I'm not willing to necessarily rely on him. Think that he'll have a role week in, week out. I don't think that's going to happen, especially with the guys ahead of him, at least this season. So for this season, if we're talking specifically 2020, I think Sony Michel, for where he's going, is a value. I think James White is going to continue to be James White. I think he'll just be that consistent PPR option. And then outside of that, it's going to kind of be hard to really trust anyone. They'll probably have some games that'll make you, take a look. But I don't think that you'll ever want to consistently rely on anyone besides those first two that I mentioned. Do you have the same overall opinion?
No, I kind of feel the reverse about that. I think James White is more of a value in Dynasty and redraft, and I'm not really buying into Sony Michel because his ADP is definitely going to jump up a couple rounds after that signing. So I'm definitely going to be out. I'd rather take a shot on a guy like Matt Breida than Sony Michel.
I gotcha. To relate back to my rankings, I'm going to relate back to my rankings because they're actually done. James White is my RB30. Sony Michel is... Where's Sony Michel? My RB32. So that has them both as a little bit of values. But obviously, if anything were to change, ADP jumps up or something of that nature, then I'm willing to just kind of sit back. Damian Harris is my running back, 45, so he's kind of just someone that I'm willing to, use a throwaway pick at the end of the draft. Like, a running back who could have a role this season, and if he doesn't, he's just someone I can cut week 1 and then attack the waiver wire. So next backfield that we're going to talk about after the New England Patriots, we'll go to a division rival here with the Buffalo Bills. Let's see. The Buffalo Bills mainly have two guys in their running back field, or in their running back core, I meant, between Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. They also have TJ, I don't know why I was trying to say Tevin. TJ Yeldon. And then if you want to count Josh Allen as a running back, which you should because of how much he runs the ball, especially near the goal line, then you can. So I'll just lead off with a quick opinion here. I think Devin Singletary is a solid back with low upside, and Zach Moss is more of the, the touchdown back, but what kind of role will he have when Josh Allen's really taking touchdowns? Do you kind of agree with that general opinion?
No, but yes.
Do you think so? No, in the sense of Zach Moss, as in you think he'll be relevant this season?
Zach Moss is a player I'm strongly fading in all formats. I don't see the upside in any format. People are projecting him to take over the Frank Gore role, but I don't think it compares because Singletary was a rookie adapting to the NFL last year. Over the next few years, Singletary isn't going to go away. And
He's
then
a
the
good running
college
back.
profile for Zach Moss is hampered by injuries with his reckless running style. He reminds me of a lot of a player like Royce Freeman, Kenneth Dixon, Mike Davis, Robert Turbin, just an average guy. I don't really, even though he has a high
Yeah.
draft capital, I don't see his appeal in any format, unfortunately for me. But Devin Singletary, I kind of feel differently about. Devin Singletary was a DFS darling for me late in the season. Starting off with week 11, he had at least 17 touches in every single game. It was a major cog, and the Bills powering back into the playoffs. I think he could be a sneaky workhorse back. His college profile definitely supports his case. I don't think there'll be a dramatic uptick in his production, which may cap his ability to reach RB1 status. That's why in Dynasty, I'm not going to go out my way to buy him, but in a redraft format, is a different case of scenario. When I go 0 RB in my drafts, when I'm hitting the RB position this year in round like 5 and 6, the guys that you're looking at in that range are James Conner, Devin Singletary, David Johnson, and David Montgomery. And I don't see David Montgomery being a bell cow. I'm not high on James Conner, and David Johnson doesn't really move the needle for me. So I kind of take Devin Singletary in those type of spots. Where I can see him improving slightly is the touchdown category, because Buffalo ran the ball 44% of the time in the red zone, and almost all the touches inside the goal line went to Frank Gore and Josh Allen.
Right. Yeah. That's my worry, is that, Zach Moss takes over the Frank Gore role. What they're really talking about is that short yardage goal line role. And at that point, I think Devin Singletary had like 2 touches inside the 10, and it's okay for fantasy, but he's never going to give you those monster games for that reason. I think he's my running back 24 right now. He's really a really solid number 2. He's someone that I would love to have, like you said, in the later rounds. In the 6th round, he's a great option if he's going around there. I think there's upside with other guys, but like I said, he's a good target for me later because I know what I'm getting. I know I'm getting a guy who's probably going to get around 17 touches a game, whether that's running the football or getting passing work, because he is a good pass catcher, and he's a talented running back. He can find ways to score even if he's not the goal line back who's getting utilized in that way. I think Josh Allen. Let's talk about him real quick because he's basically a running back, and I think he's going to. I'm not going to say limit the upside of whoever is the running back here, because I feel like if they put a great running back in this system, I think Devin Singletary is a far above average running back, but I wouldn't call him great. I think that if they put a great running back in the system, then they would have to kind of respect that, and that running back would have the opportunity here to kind of take over. But Josh Allen himself likes to do things on his own. So that combined with what I expect Zach Moss to take over, that kind of short yardage, the goal line work, it kind of limits Devin Singletary's upside, but I think he's going to be a consistent option because he's going to get yards, he's going to get passing work, and he's a good running back. So his consistent usage, he will be the running back 1 for this team. And, you can make a similar argument to the Patriots where they have a running quarterback, they have a great defense, they're a team that's built to run the ball. So Devin Singletary is a guy that I like a lot. He'll probably never be my running back 1 on the team unless I'm like injury decimated, but the plan will always be that he's my running back 2 or 3 from an upside standpoint. So we're going to head in here to another backfield that, well, they added a rookie, and, it's kind of thrown a lot of smoke on the fire. We're going to be talking about the Washington Redskins backfield. Now, I want to preface this by saying that there was value in the Washington backfield last season. Adrian Peterson had good games as the bell cow when he was playing. When he was playing and Geis was hurt, he was the bell cow running back for this team. Geis had a few healthy games, and he actually had some great fantasy games in those times. Those both at the moment, both of those running backs are still on the roster. They drafted Antonio Gibson in the 3rd round. They also signed Peyton Barber out of free agency, also added J.D. McKissick out of free agency. So 5 running backs on this team who could see work, and I'm not I'm not really sure where to go from here. A new regime, the new entirely. Scott Turner is the new offensive coordinator. So, Billy, how are you breaking down the Washington Redskins backfield for this season?
Darius Geis, I'm a strong believer. I'm willing to pay the price tag in Dynasty and redraft leagues. The price that he's at right now is anywhere from a 5th round through 7th round draft pick in both
I think that's fair. Like that's a good price for, Darius Geis.
Where
Like
you going? Yeah.
What?
What'd you say?
Yeah. It's like you said, it's a fair price, and it's a price that I would 100% be willing to pay.
Yeah, people will go with the wait and see approach. So the buying window for Darius Geis will be the lowest that it's ever going to be right now. He's the type of guy that you want to pick if you want to nail the home run running back play, if that's a hole in your team. But he's not a type of guy that's going to give you the stability. But Antonio Gibson played wide receiver at Memphis, making the transition to a full-time running back in the NFL. I don't see the immediate fantasy value for him. More of a real-life dynamic utility player to add to the offense. The best case scenario for him would be taking over the Chris Thompson role. He will never be a bell cow ever in his career, in my opinion. And that's why I feel like they added J.D. McKissick, the first take in the reins of the Chris Thompson role, and have them kind of like split a little bit between the pass catching role, because I think Antonio Gibson has a lot to learn about the NFL, and switching over to running back position is definitely going to be hard for him. And Adrian Peterson, if you're a Darius Geis owner, would you be looking towards Adrian Peterson as your handcuff? He led all skins and running backs, 898 yards on 211 carries and 5 touchdowns. AP, like you said, had a pretty decent year last year. He shows the type of upside that you can get in this backfield. How do you feel about the Redskins backfield? Because I know you are not a big risk-averse taking type of guy, and Darius Geis is the biggest risk on the board.
So we were talking about it. I don't mind the risk Darius Geis because of the price. If he's my running back 23 right now, he's right behind Leonard Fournette and David Johnson. David Montgomery is up there as well. But Darius Geis is one of those guys where, my first 2 picks may have been wide receiver just by how the draft fell. And then after that, round 3, I might have gone like Le'Veon Bell or Todd Gurley. And then round 4, maybe, another running back where I was just looking for consistency. Round 5, Darius Geis would be strongly in my, my sights. Yeah, he would be someone that I would be looking at strongly because of the upside. And we've seen it before. If I had to bank on one running back in this in this backfield, I'd put my life on one running back in this backfield. I would put on Darius Geis. And I think if he can stay healthy, which, I think he's the healthiest he's ever been. I think he has the potential to just be healthy for a full season for once. He was kind of his preseason, his rookie season. It was an unfortunate accident, but to imagine that he came back from all the infections and all the surgeries that he had to even play it down last season was incredible. And now he's actually healthy. And we've always looked at seasons after players tearing their ACL is when they kind of have those relapsing injuries. They have little things that just hamper them over again. So I do believe in the health of Darius Geis for this season. I do agree that there's upside as well with Antonio Gibson, but I agree with you. Making the transition from wide receiver to running back is not as easy as they make it seem. And it's the NFL. It's a whole new game. They signed J.D. McKissick for a reason, probably, and it's probably not just depth. Peyton Barber, I think Peyton Barber is probably going to take Adrian Peterson's job just because of age and maybe Peterson's mentality. AP, when Geis was healthy and playing last season, AP was mad because he wasn't
not
getting
happy.
touches. Yeah. And he can get cut and probably go to maybe a team like the 49ers who can use him in sort of like a, short yardage role here and there, and he can find success there again because he's just as everlasting as Frank Gore these days. But yeah, I think there's value to be had. And Scott Turner, the son of Norv, I think he's going to find a way to get value out of the running back position. Dwayne Haskins is got a long way to go at the quarterback position, but we've had years of elite running back play for Ron Rivera running backs. First, it was D'Angelo Williams / Jonathan Stewart for a little bit, and then Christian McCaffrey really developed there towards the end of that run. So, yeah, I think as far as Dynasty, if I had to bet on anyone, I would definitely put my chips in on Darius Geis. I'd be trying to buy him right now because I think this will be the cheapest that you can ever get him. And if what would you realistically pay for Darius Geis right now?
In a Dynasty League,
Yeah.
I would give up into a 21 second rounder. I would give up a 21 second rounder for Darius Geis if I really needed the help, or if I was rebuilding my team in some type of way, I would take a shot at getting Darius Geis.
So if I'm a separate owner, I send you an offer right now. James Conner, straight up for Darius Geis.
I would accept that in a fucking heartbeat and try to hide in my room and hope nobody saw that trade because that's a wrap.
They're going around the same ADP right now. I actually do like James Conner a little bit. David Montgomery, Darius Geis.
Let me check my ranks and give you an accurate.
I think Montgomery has the potential to. I think he has the potential to get the workload. Their team is committed to him for a little bit longer, and Tariq Cohen should be a free agent here soon. So, and the team should be improving. I mean, you can't get worse than Mitch Trubisky last season. So, I think it can really only go up for David Montgomery, who still finished as a running back 20 last season. So that would be an argument for him over Geis. But Geis, I think, he's shown top 5 upside, which I'm not sure you can really see consistently out of David Montgomery. So, all right, we're going to move on here into another NFC backfield. I, again, prefaced this one earlier. The San Francisco 49ers. let's start. Raheem Mostert, was a guy I loved for this season, especially at the price that you could get him. But now with him requesting a trade, there's so much doubt there. And then you have Tevin Coleman, the incumbent, right behind him, um, going somewhat later in Dynasty just for the way he ended the season, but he had great stretch runs during the season as well. Um, Jerick McKinnon still on the roster if he can actually show any signs of life. Um, and then beyond that, they have two undrafted free agents, Jermichael Hasty and Salvin Ahmad. So, Bill, I mean, let's start with Raheem Mostert being on the roster. Let's say he's on the roster for 2020 because as of right now, he is on the roster. What are your thoughts on that backfield?
If Raheem Mostert is on the roster for the upcoming season, I think that this trade rumor will definitely suppress his ADP back down to buying range because he has been a hot commodity on everybody's sleeper off-season podcast over the off-season. So I'm kind of happy this rumor came out and suppresses ADP a little bit because now my ranking of him in Dynasty 29 and redraft, I have him ranked as 27. Feels somewhat right now. You know what I'm saying? And then with that ADP value, even though I think that's a value, I'd much rather take a shot on Jeff Wilson as my last round pick because I think he's
Someone I
going to
didn't
get
even mention.
Matt Breida's role from last season. And the Matt Breida role is somewhat very sneaky for this team. I'm trying to go on player profile right now because he had 1 week where it was week 2 and week 3. He had 10 and 8 carries and 2 total touchdowns. So I think if there was a person to take over that red zone role, if Raheem Mostert leaves, I think it would be Jeff Wilson while everybody talks up Tevin Coleman in the fantasy community. And I feel like Jerick McKinnon is going to be the odd man left out, but not really particularly because should we be looking at Jerick McKinnon because he's probably going to be the pass catcher in this backfield. But he finished as RB23 in 2017, so we've seen him be a top 25 back before in fantasy. How do you feel about this backfield?
All right, so I want to lead off by saying that there is 1,000% value to be found in this backfield. Like, number one, Kyle Shanahan, probably runs the ball better than any coach in football. You have George Kittle, who's an elite tight end and a great blocker. You have a great offensive line in front of him. You have Kyle Juszczyk, who's the best blocking fullback in the league. And their second tight end, besides that, Ross Dwelley, he's even a pretty solid blocker. And then, Kyle Shanahan has got two big blocking wide receivers now if Debo is healthy, along with Brandon Ayuk. It's a big reason why Dante Pettis never really, saw daylight through that backfield or through that wide receiver group. Is because he wasn't really willing to go put in the work that those other guys were in the blocking game, which running is, a huge aspect of the 49ers backfield. So, or offense as a whole. So, there is 100% going to be a running back who is valuable, probably in season long. And, you're going to start him and just say, wow, thank God I have this guy. But at the moment, I believe it's Raheem Mostert if he's on the roster. He's my running back 11 because he took over much more than any other running back on that team took over. Tevin Coleman had a stretch, but then got beat out by Raheem Mostert. Jerick McKinnon wasn't on the team technically, but even when Jeff Wilson was there, it was Raheem Mostert, and you saw that throughout the end of the season, where I believe I can check it real quick, but I believe over the last 6 weeks or so, Mostert was a top 8 option. I'm gonna check this real quick, but um, you've seen Raheem Mostert do it already. With not the same running backs on the team, but with very mostly the same running backs, same situation. Now, if Mostert is not on the team, Tevin Coleman's he's gonna be a 3rd round pick by the time redraft season happens, if that happens. Not saying he's worth that value, because I really don't think he will be. At that point, I'll be taking my shot later in drafts on guys like Jeff Wilson, guys like Jerick McKinnon. But as it stands, and this news could stand to just kind of make Raheem Mostert go later in drafts. I'll be willing to take that shot easily. From weeks 11 through week 17 last season, Raheem Mostert was the running back 11 in PPR. So that gives you some thoughts on that, as far as my rankings. What do you think about the 49ers backfield if Mostert is not on the team? Do you think Coleman, because I think it's very likely Coleman would be a 3rd round pick around that point, because the hype around him would just be so.
Jeff Wilson, I think he would take over the red zone, goal line, power back type of work. And I think he would be the cheapest out of all the 3. And he would have the best value of all the 3, because I think Tevin Coleman's ADP would jump up significantly way too high.
Way too high. I agree. All right, so we'll head into another NFC backfield here. We're going to talk about Billy, your favorite team here, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not going to talk shit on them or anything, because I actually don't mind the Philadelphia Eagles. As far as their backfield, you have Miles Sanders on the roster, you have Boston Scott, and besides those 2 guys, there's not a lot of people to take note of. Last season, Jordan Howard was on the roster, and he is now in Miami. Darren Sproles was on the roster, and he is now retired. So there's not a lot of competition for those 2 running backs at the moment. It's Devonta Freeman's really the only running back still out in free agency where you would be like, okay, if he signs here, that that makes a fantasy impact. But with the way that Devonta Freeman's been talking, with the way that he's been trying to get paid, I expect him to stay a free agent at this point, especially at least not sign with Philly unless a major injury happens to someone like Miles Sanders or Boston Scott, and they have no choice at that point. So I think this is going to be majorly the running back group heading into the season. Billy, your thoughts on this core?
Miles Sanders from week 12 through 16, when Howard got hurt, he averaged 21 fantasy points per game. The pass catching is already one of the league's best. All he needs to do is see 60% of the carries in the backfield. I truly believe Sanders will be a top 3 running back in Dynasty in 2021 startup drafts this time next year. He's one of 3 players in NFL history to have 800 rushing yards, 500 receiving yards, 50 or more receptions, and over 4.5 yards per carry with only 180 carries. The list is 1, Tiki Barber, 2, Brian Westbrook, 3, Miles Sanders, and that was his rookie year, not even beginning the season as a starter. ADP-wise, he is a back-end RB1, but I have him ranked as a RB6 over Joe Mixon and just edging out Josh Jacobs. For Boston Scott, as of right now, the RB2 role belongs to Boston Scott. He's a guy that makes the most of his limited opportunity. In the final 4 games, he saw no fewer than 6 targets, caught 23 of 25 targets. The impact of his fantasy value will highly be dependent on what veteran running back the team chooses to add. His ADP is RB63, which is way off for the current situation.
Yeah,
I have
definitely.
him run as RB48 in redraft, right behind Joshua Kelly and just ahead of Anthony McFarland and Chase Edmonds. How do you feel about this backfield?
I have Miles Sanders right now as my running back 9, right behind Joe Mixon and Kenyon Drake. And then right behind him is Aaron Jones, Raheem Mostert, Todd Gurley. I actually have Boston Scott a little higher than you, 38 overall, right behind Jordan Howard, and ahead of Alexander Madison, Philip Lindsay, Matt Breida, Tony Pollard. Yeah, I think there's I just remember beginning this offseason, so many people making the Christian McCaffrey comparisons with Miles Sanders, and I can't say I see that. I can't say that I expect that Miles Sanders is going to become Christian McCaffrey, but he is a really valuable running back, and he's someone who's you said like if he can get 65% of the carries and stay as targeted as he has been, then he's going to be a top 10 back almost without a doubt. And I think that's very likely to happen, especially with losing Jordan Howard as competition. His biggest competition is Boston Scott, and like I said, unless they sign Devonta Freeman, then there's no one they can sign that's going to um, threaten me or make me worried about Miles Sanders, unless they maybe trade for Raheem Mostert, a former Eagle, I remember. But if they made that move, I would think he's more of a threat to Boston Scott to take his role than more of a threat to take touches away from Miles Sanders. So I am willing to be all in on Miles Sanders. I don't necessarily think he's going to be top 3 after this season in Dynasty next season, but I respect the take a lot, and I think there's definitely a path where he could hit that. So it's great to know we both love Miles Sanders for this season. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying like the hype around him needs to be calmed down, like it's getting out of control. But right now I think he's a mid-second round pick, around the second round, and I really don't see how that's out of control. If he was a top 8 pick in drafts, okay, he's got to return on that value. But taking him in the second round, I think, is a great shot to take, and I think he very well could return on that value. So we're gonna head in now to
can we the last backfield and hop right back into the end topic of the Brewski League? I want to about the Brewski League because I feel like that might go a little bit longer than we expect.
All right, so we're going to talk about a new startup that Billy and I are a part of. By the way, I have Miles Sanders in this startup, but we are currently we're very very close to being finished. I have 2 picks left. Billy has 1. So this is a super flex league with 2 flex spots, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 1.75 point tight end premium. So a little bit more value garnered to each position. I also think there's a point per carry scoring setting.
Tight end premium? I did not know that.
Yes, it's
that.
0.75. Let's see. There is no premium for rushing. However, there is 1 point added for big plays and 2 points added for big touchdowns. So I'm going to go run down my team really quick here. I had
Run down your team. Can you go over your draft strategy that built the foundation of your roster? I would like.
Definitely. So I had the 4th pick. As you all know, if you've been in the Dynasty startup, a competitive one, in Superflex leagues, the top 4 in some order is always Christian McCaffrey, Patrick Mahomes, Saquon Barkley, and Lamar Jackson. This league, it was that order: Christian McCaffrey, Pat Mahomes, Saquon Barkley. And I was on the board there and I was just not eager to take Lamar Jackson. Not in the sense of I don't like him. I love Lamar, and I was happy to get another share of him. But I was just open to listening to trades, and I ended up receiving an offer that I liked, which was giving up my 4th pick in order to acquire a 2nd and a 3rd round pick, and I would also give up a 6th round pick. So that was, to me, great value. Just because this is a league where you need 10 starters, 11 starters, and at that point I feel like I can still find a great quarterback. So my pick in the 2nd round, I ended up having the 204 from that trade, turned into Dak Prescott. So Dak is my quarterback 3 in Dynasty, and I felt like he's normally a pick in the 108 to 110 range, and for him to fall there to the early 2nd for me was a great value. So I easily took Dak Prescott. Now in my head, I've already won the trade because whoever I get in the 3rd round is going to vastly outweigh whoever this man takes in the 6th round, because Dak Prescott and Lamar Jackson, there's a tier break there, but with Lamar at quarterback 2 and Dak at quarterback 3, the gap between those guys is not nearly as big as the gap between the 3rd and 6th round pick, in my opinion. But this is, before those picks even happened, so I couldn't make an accurate guess. But yeah, to me, Dak was the best prospect left on the board. Davante Adams was still on the board, someone that I might have thought of, but I think I have them very closely ranked. But to me, Dak just falling to 204 was an even greater value than Davante Adams, and you can find more great wide receivers later than you can find great quarterbacks. So I was on the board again at 209, which was my original pick, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor went back-to-back before me, with Miles Sanders still being on the board. So I had no idea how those two went ahead of Miles Sanders. To me, it was an auto at that point. He's just a great young running back, and as we've discussed, we both have him ranked as top 9 running backs for this season. So it was an easy pick. Pairing Dak and Miles Sanders to me was arguably the best way I could start up. And then the next few picks, it came back to me at 304, and my guy, J.K. Dobbins, still on the board there. I couldn't pass up. Russell Wilson was still on the board. I could have had Dak along with Miles Sanders. That would have been great, but it was just too hard for me to pass on JK, a guy I've loved. He's probably not going to have a huge role this season, but in my thought process there, if I could find a way to get Mark Ingram later in the draft, I wouldn't be so worried about JK not having a role this season. And I would 100% be willing to invest into the Ravens backfield with a 3rd and whatever later round pick it is, because that running back field is going to be efficient no matter what. And then at 309, the other pick that I got from the trade turned into Cam Akers. Passed up on Julio Jones, Travis Kelce, Leonard Fournette, Mark Andrews. Josh Allen was another name I was considering there. But the thing for me was when Cam Akers was there, I said, okay, I have Miles Sanders, I have J.K. Dobbins. Both are very young. I might as well just commit to young running backs early because that's where the value is, right? Like while they're on the rookie contract, while they're young, while they're able to be exploited, by the team, they're going to be run down. And at that point, I can potentially, hopefully, trade them later on into their career. And I have these three guys for the next 3 to 4 years, and I know they're going to be great over this time. My 4th round pick later that round turned into my first wide receiver, Allen Robinson. So from there, I'm not going to go round by round, but my current team is Dak Prescott, Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, Allen Robinson, Cam Akers, as I alluded to. I also added David Montgomery, another young running back. Christian Kirk and McCole Hardman are 2 other wide receivers on my team. They're also very young, so that fits into that mindset. Mark Ingram was someone that I was able to get in the 9th round thanks to a trade with Billy. And then, at wide receiver, I felt great with Allen Robinson as my 1, but we have to start 3 wide receivers weekly, so I was kind of here and there, not sold on my team at the wide receiver position. Like I mentioned, Christian Kirk and McCole Hardman are currently in my starting lineup. I feel pretty good about Christian Kirk for this season, but McCole Hardman definitely not. So I tried to work on that a little bit later in the draft. I took Marvin Jones in the 12th round, Van Jefferson in the 14th, and he's definitely a shot, but he is a guy I think could really pan out after this season. Quintez Cephas, because I think he's sort of primed to take over the Marvin Jones role after Marvin Jones becomes a free agent after this season. Cole Beasley later on, Chris Conley, just guys I feel like I can start here and there. And then I also have Andy Isabella, who's a guy that is more of a project. Isaiah Hodgins, more of a project. So I feel like as though I have a good mix of guys where I can start them on a given week and a good mix of guys where they're project players, and if they develop, then my team will be looking great. And then tight end, real quick, Tyler Higbee, I paired him with Gerald Everett. So I'm going to have the great Rams tight end, whoever that is. And then I just took some shots later at tight end to Dawson Knox, Ryan Griffin, Ricky Seals-Jones. And at quarterback, to pair with Dak Prescott, I also have Tom Brady and Phillip Rivers for this season. And for the future, I have Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. So this is a team that I like a lot. Also want to throw in that I got Benny Snell really late, which I like a lot too with James Conner's injuries, because the team sees him as the clear backup. So I think the role for Benny Snell could be realistic. So yeah, this is a team that I like a lot, especially because of the young running backs that I got, the stability that I got at quarterback, and the potential that I have at wide receiver. Back here with Detroit Beastie.
What up?
We're here every day. Yeah, I mean, every Wednesday, you might as well come catch us here at Dynasty Force Pod. It's like clockwork at that point.
I'm glad Chris is on, because when we started this Brewski League, shouts to Shane for the invite. I ended up getting to 101, and I was on the clock, and I just picked Christian McCaffrey without any thoughts or doubts about it. And I asked Detroit Beastie about his thoughts about it, and he said Billy did the right decision. I'm glad he definitely backed me up on that. I thought this draft was very interesting because I never got the 101 in any type of fantasy league draft I've ever done before in my life. So it was definitely an enticing situation to get Patrick Mahomes just to have an ownership of Patrick Mahomes. But I was pretty on Patrick Mahomes his rookie year. So I went through the Patrick Mahomes experience before. So I thought I missed out on the Christian McCaffrey experience because of personal reasons of my stupidity of going to the bathroom in the beginning of fantasy drafts and getting my pick. But needless to say, I got Christian McCaffrey as my first round pick. And when I came back on the clock, I was getting really excited. I thought Josh Jacobs was going to land to me, but ultimately he got sniped right before me. So I ended up going with Derrick Henry. I thought just the stability of having Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry in this type of league where you said you have to have 10 starters is going to be such a 1-2 punch combo that
it's going to be hard to keep up with.
Aren't going to have the benefit of having two stable running backs like that. And then even as I got deeper in the draft, quarterbacks are flying off the board, man, left and right. That's the one position I'm really trying to upgrade. I have Baker Mayfield and Matthew Stafford. I picked Matthew Stafford over Matt Ryan, which I really had to think about and really do some digging into the statistics. And the ultimate, this is probably going to sound stupid, but the ultimate decider for me was I really liked the early season start schedule of Matthew Stafford, and in a case scenario where I have to start Stafford as quarterback or or just having him over Baker in a week or something like that, I just feel really high on Matthew Stafford's stability to give me consistent points week in, week out. And then I went on a wide receiver running back tear. I went Adam Thielen, Marquise Brown, and Brandon Cooks. Actually made a trade with Rob. I thought that one was pretty interesting to bring up on the pod because I was really wide receiver needy and I had Marquise Brown and I kind of reached for him a little bit because I felt I got such a value of Adam Thielen, who I have ranked as a top 10 wide receiver for redraft. So I'm definitely going for the win now scenario. So I definitely want to get rid of one of my future draft picks because I felt like it was going to be a later draft pick than we're hoping it's going to be a later draft pick than usual. And I really wanted to get Zach Ertz at my pick at 7-1. I was trying to really search if it was a tight end premium or not. I thought that was a really good value on Zach Ertz. Shout out the Hot Dogs for that. But ended up ultimately trading for Keyshawn Vaughn over a guy like Jalen Reagor, who also went a couple picks later. I just felt like Keyshawn Vaughn gave the upside to finish out my running back core because my running backs are Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Kenyon Drake, Keyshawn Vaughn, Joshua Kelly, and sleeper backup running back handcuff for Kenyon Drake will be Ito Benjamin over Chase Edmonds. That was my hot take. And also in that draft, I felt like I did a really decent job of wide receiver stacking. I stacked the Texans wide receiver 2 situation with Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb. And I also stacked the potential wide receiver 2 or 3 situation for the Chiefs with Sammy Watkins and Demarcus Robinson. So I thought that was a little bit of a sneaky move. And also another sneaky pick in Dynasty drafts that I think people I haven't heard this name the whole entire all season was Jeremy Sprinkle, who will step into the Redskins starting tight end role this season. And I really think that he could have a somewhat productive start this season. And also CJ Uzma, who was Tyler Eifert's backup. I also have him on my team. CJ Uzma always benefited from the weeks that Tyler Eifert wasn't in the lineup, even though Tyler Boyd plays the same type of slot role as CJ Uzma. I think him just getting all the tight end snaps, he could be a sneaky pick in Dynasty Leagues this year. Ultimately, who besides your team was your favorite team from the draft so far?
I want to give a quick look and shout out to Shane, fellow forecaster. He always drafts well. I'm not as on his team this league as I normally am on his teams, but this league specifically, he was drafting from the 12th spot. He has Jared Goff at quarterback, Nick Chubb, Leonard Fournette at running back, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson at wide receiver, Mark Andrews at tight end, Chris Carson, and Evan Ingram. I think the Andrews Evan Ingram stack is really good. But then he has Kirk Cousins, N'Keal Harry, AJ Green, Mitchell Trubisky, which never Trubisky. Jared Cook, Brashad Perriman, Golden Tate, who I like a lot, Caden Smith, who's a good pair with Evan Ingram, especially, for the injury concerns. Lynn Bowden, DJ Dallas, Trent Taylor, Larry Fitz, Rex Burkhead. No one beyond that of great name, but I think he has a solid team. I just wanted to highlight it a little bit. I think he definitely needs quarterback help. I might be able to help with that, Shane, if you're listening. Because after Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins, he has Mitch Trubisky, and that's it. So it's kind of, it's thin at this in a super flex league.
But I was going to say, I think one of the best teams from the draft, I shared a document with you of the draft board.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Black Sheep had a really good roster because his approach to the draft was different. I would have switched up a couple of things, but I think his draft overall was pretty good. The core of his team of Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Odell Beckham, Kenny Galladay, Noah Fant, Devin Singletary, Gardner Minshew, Tariq Cohen, Tevin Coleman. Like, I thought that was a really sneaky roster because a couple of things fall in his right direction. He could definitely be competing for the immediate now season and for years to come. The only thing that I didn't really like about his roster was the quarterback situation of Aaron Rodgers. I felt like even though he was a value in that draft of where he went, I would have much preferred a different starting quarterback. But was there any teams that stood out to you from the draft?
I'm going through real quick. There's a few teams that have some great, core pieces like Slap Mom, the commissioner of the league, has Josh Allen, Aaron Jones.
Mom, I liked his approach to the draft too because he went 0 RB. So I thought that was pretty interesting to see that approach taken in this type of league format.
Right. It did pay off for him in a sense. Like I said, Josh Allen, he did get Aaron Jones in the 3rd round, but then after that didn't attack the running back position until the 7th. He had DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Amari Cooper, Cooper Kupp, DJ Chark. Ended up with Matt Ryan and Darren Waller as well. David Johnson is a great running back too to have. And then beyond that, Devontae Parker, Raheem Mostert, Dallas Goedert, Nick Foles, where he could use a little more depth at the quarterback position, but at least he has 3 starters. Andy Dalton is another name he has. He also has James White, Emmanuel Sanders, someone I like a lot. Russell Gage could be a nice little sleeper there. So he definitely has some depth pieces on his bench that will make you raise an eyebrow and say, like, okay, like, this is a really strong option here to pair with his strong lineup. He's been saying he needs some running back help. You might be able to help him there, considering your 3 strong running backs.
Kenyon Drake. I'm trying to get this 3-team trade going on of me.
They're always difficult to work on.
Slapmob.com. Trying to acquire Jonathan Taylor or Josh Jacobs from him, but he's not budging for it. But hopefully within the next days, we can get this 3-team trade going.
I'll be on the lookout for it. All right, we are about finished here. Anything else you want to mention today, Bill? You want to shout yourself out? You want to, kind of just tell the listeners where they can find you in
Anybody
case they
has made it this far and they're watching it live on the podcast, let them know we are throwing the bank on Jorge Masvidal, UFC 251. He is almost a 2-1 underdog. If you want free money this weekend, put your money on Street Jesus.
I think everyone will appreciate the little tidbit that you gave there, the little hint to success. All right. Bill at getting underscore Bills underscore on Twitter. Catch me at Fantasy Force FB on Twitter. My name's Robert, and then at Dynasty Force Pod for the show. You'll see every time we go live. You'll see every time we're kind of alluding to the show and helping to get you ready. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Wednesday nights. Next week we're gonna start with a consistent, and I promise consistent, success of 6 o'clock Eastern time. We will be going live. Yeah, I had a great time on this episode, Bill. I love diving into those committees with you. Love diving into the Raheem Mostert and Cam Newton news and talking about this new startup that we're in.
Yep, it was a good episode, man. I can't wait to get back at it again next week. I think next week I want to feature the Family Feud type trivia question episode. So I'll definitely be in your DMs talking about that. I feel like that's a good off-season midway episode.
For sure. All right, and as always, we appreciate feedback from all of you, whether it's in our comments, whether it's in our email at dynastyforcepod@gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if we suck. We obviously want to get better. So, we're very open to constructive criticism. You will catch us next week, Wednesday, 6 o'clock. Be there or be square. Dynasty Force Pod crew heading out. Enjoy your night, everyone. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy yourselves.